My name is Mrs. Pikulski, and most people around here call me Miss EJ. So if you see me after this is over, be sure to say hi, Miss EJ, and I'll know who you are. The book we're going to read today is called If You Decide to Go to the Moon, and it's a story about a boy who does go to the moon in a real rocket ship. Okay. If You Decide to Go to the Moon by Faith McNulty, and the illustrations, which means the pictures, were drawn by Kellogg, both of which are pretty well known. If you decide to go to the moon in your own rocket ship, read this book before you start. And see, he's talking to his cat and his dog and his sister. It will tell you how to get there and what to do after you land. The most important part tells you how to get back home. Check the things you will need: a spacesuit, air tanks, books, games, and don't forget a diary and plenty of food. Peanut butter, apples, cake will all taste good in space. Water and juice are also important. Okay, and I just wanted to clarify for you, a diary is a book that you have blank pages and you write in the things that are happening to you. Okay, to get to the moon, you will travel 2,040 miles, 240,000 miles. A long trip, but rocket ships go fast. You average 3,750 miles per hour. You will get to the moon in 2.5 days. Okay, now don't forget though, you're really going to be traveling a lot more because you're going to have to travel that same 2,040 miles for I'm not doing this right. 240,000 miles. Okay, here we go. Now, if you could help me by counting out loud, when a spaceship takes off, they always count backwards to get to the takeoff. So, get aboard, close the hatch, light the burners, and here we go. We're counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! You shoot up into the sky. As your ship rises through the clouds, your body is pressed against the seat. At first, you will feel very heavy. Don't worry. This feeling will go away. A few seconds, you will fly through a mixture of clouds and air and dust that hangs over the earth. It is not very thick, only about 15 miles. You will shoot right through it into space. And 15 miles is about as far as it is to go to Hannaford's down in Belfast. Space is dark and empty. There is no air in space, no clouds, no rain, only a few specks of dust. Some rocks called meteors and some chunks of ice called comets. Both meteors and comets are pieces of stars that have exploded long ago and have been flying around in space ever since. If one hit you, it would be very bad. But space is so big that you are so small that the collision is very unlikely. In the blackness of space, the stars shine like a million fireflies. Okay, so meteors come from rocks and comets come from ice. All right, the sun blazes with fiery light, and the moon, the mysterious moon, glows like a pearl in the black, black sky. If you know that the moon has no light, it is of its own. It glows with the light from the sun. Up here in space, you may feel very alone. Don't look back at the earth. It would make you feel even more lonely. Most of the time, you should try to play some cheery music, eat a peanut butter sandwich, keep your eyes fixed on the shining moon, and settle down for a long ride. Relax. Take off your seatbelt and be prepared for a surprise. Because you are weightless in space, you feel amazingly light. You will float like a feather inside the cabin and bounce off the cabin walls. You will bounce very lightly and find that it's a lot of fun. When you are thirsty, don't try to pour some orange juice into a glass. With everything weightless, it would collect and float in little tiny liquid balls all over the inside of the ship. You can drink out of a squeeze bottle instead. After supper and a squeeze of juice, it's time to go to bed. Now, weightless means that there's nothing to hold you down, and so you will just float around. Tie yourself to your bunk so that you won't float away while you're sleeping, and settle down for a good night's sleep. Of course, there is no night in space. You will just have to pretend. Try to have some sweet dreams. And there he is, and he's dreaming about being with his sister and his animal friends. When you wake, you will be very much closer to the moon. It will be big and round and very bright, with dark patches that look like lakes or seas. They were made billions of years ago when the moon was very hot enough to melt stone. Now and then, melted stone spurted up through the crust and spread out on the surface like spilled soup. When it cooled, it hardened into stone called lava. From Earth, these smooth, dark places look like oceans. Okay. Playing cards will help to pass the time, but if you drop them, they will drift around the cabin like butterflies. Floating around, you'll have to catch them. It's like swimming in a dream. The first humans to go to the moon landed at the Sea of Tranquility. It is marked on your map of the moon, and you will be in a good place to land. Okay, does anybody know what tranquility means? It's very peaceful, very smooth. So it's a happy place to land. But you still have a long way to go. When you are tired, lie down and look at the stars. And you can see him in the spaceship there. He's looking out the window. On Earth, you see only the stars that are above you. But up here, there are stars in every direction. You might write in your diary, I wonder how far space goes and where does it end? Okay, this is what the earth looks, this is what the moon looks like. See all of these sort of like holes? At last, you have read all your books, played all your games. You wake up from your nap and see the moon right there below you. You look down at the endless desert. Everything is one color, silvery gray. The ground is covered with rocks and round craters. Craters are holes that are made by meteors when they land on the moon. Some of the huge ones have made deep holes hundreds of miles across. Of course, you steer clear of the rocky places. Okay. And what color is the moon? Silvery gray. At last, you see a lava lake below, the Sea of Tranquility. Get ready to land. As you descend, your craft shivers and shakes. It settles softly. You feel the bump. You are on the moon. Your first look will be disappointing. All you see through the porthole, that's the little window, all you see through the porthole is the cloud of dust stirred up by your landing. You wait for it to settle. Then open up the door and jump out. You will land lightly. The moon is smaller than Earth and has less gravity to pull you down. If you weighed 60 pounds on Earth, you would weigh only 10 pounds on the moon. Your first step will be difficult. You will rise in the air and leap forward like a kangaroo. But once you learn how, walking can be fun. Okay, and the lava on the Sea of Tranquility is one of the smoothest places on the moon, and that's why it's chosen for you to land on. Each step takes you 5 times as far as a step on Earth. Leaping over boulders and craters, you cover the ground with magical swiftness. The moonscape is strange, but it doesn't look dangerous. The dust reminds you of cake flour. You wish that you could take off your suit and play in it. That's called the moonscape. And here on Earth, where we have dirt and grass, we call it a landscape. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we've just talked about how you were going to take off your suit and play in the sand. Don't do it. The heat of the sun will burn you up. Because there is no air or water on the moon, there are no clouds to shield from the heat of the sun or the cold of space. Anything in a shadow is instantly cold. And without your spacesuit, you would sizzle and freeze. As you walk, you will notice that your boots don't crunch on the pebbles. If you take a hammer and hit a rock, there's no bang. It's impossible to make a noise on the moon. Without air to carry the sound waves, you can't hear a bell ring, you can't hear a horn blow, you can't hear a whistle or a song on the moon. If you kick a pebble, it will bounce without a sound. Okay, and the reason for that is because there is no air. As you keep walking, the silence and stillness is eerie. Nothing moves. The boulders and hills have strange shapes. Some hills look like dinosaurs. Some boulders look like giant turtles, or weird birds, or a herd of cows. A heap of jagged rocks looks like a ruined castle. You feel as if you might be in a fairy tale, or maybe a dream. Your map tells you that the astronauts' camp is just over the next hill. As you climb, you wonder if things will look different at the other side. Will you find something green? Something alive? A meadow of moon grass? A herd of moon cows? What do you think? Is he going to find anything when he gets over that hill? Let's see what happens. The answer is no. The hills stretch on and on to the horizon. The horizon is where the darkness of the sky and the lightness of this ground meet. That's called the horizon. Okay. Everything on the moon is lifeless. That means it has no life, and still. Okay. And there it is. To find the astronauts' camp, climb to the top of the boulder and use your binoculars to scan the distance. Look for a patch of color, red, white, and blue, of the flag of the United States that the astronauts left behind. It will stand out against the gray dust. You get close to the camp. You see everything the astronauts left behind, strewn amid the lunar dust. Tools and equipment are scattered about. Their boot prints look fresh, as though they were just made a moment ago. The astronauts left a message, too. Anyone who visits the moon, you will find it written on a plaque. And what it says is, here, men from the planet Earth first set foot on the moon, and the date was July 1969. That's a very long time ago. But the flag they planted isn't flying. The flagpole was blown down over from the blast when the astronauts took off. And the flag is lying in the dust. You pick it up and push it deep in the sand. The flag is stiffened by wires so that it looks like a flag flying, even though, as we know, there is no wind up there. It is a brave and wonderful sight, and it reminds you of the courage the astronauts had who brought it here. If astronauts ever return, they will find the flag flying once again, and your footprints in the dust. And they'll find it flying again because you put the flag back in the dirt. By now, your tank of air is almost half empty. It's time to return to the ship. Your trail of footprints will lead you back. You retrace your steps in leaps and bounds. When you see your spaceship waiting, you are suddenly terribly homesick. You take one last look at the moon, get on board, close the hatch, that's the door, and pray that the computers will start. Okay, You push your buttons, lights flicker, machinery whirs, the rockets fire, your ship lifts up, your heart lifts too. But you have thousands of miles to travel. You'll have to be patient. Whenever you feel discouraged, look through your porthole. You will see a beautiful sight. Earth surrounded by stars, shining like blue and white balls on a Christmas tree. The nearer you get to Earth, the more wonderful Earth will seem. Finally, you will get close enough to see the continents and the oceans. A continent is a large chunk of land that's on the Earth. You can see clouds and rain and wind moving across them, connecting everything on Earth. And there's a picture of the two continents that we know well. This one up here is North America, and this section in here is Central America, and down here is South America. Okay, and we live just a little bit behind this cloud up here. Okay, and continents are big masses of land. Like the northern continent covers about at least two whole countries. Okay, and here, as we get back to Earth, as you look down at the oceans, you think of all the animals that live there. Fish and whales and seals, turtles, dolphins, soaring seabirds, and countless more. And you can see the picture there with all those animals in the ocean. Okay. And you see the Earth, is that on okay? You see the Earth, marvelous varieties. Green forests and grassy plains, mountains, lakes, and deserts that are home to animals, plants, and people too. Why is Earth so different from the moon? Earth has air and water on which all life depends. Without them, Earth would be as lifeless as the moon. And here you come down the hill. Your trip is almost over. Your ship has reached the atmosphere. You drop down through the clouds and land in the green grass. You jump out, thankful for the miraculous journey and the safe return. And there he is back at his own home. Okay, that's the end of the book. And I wanted to tell you a couple of more things that are kind of interesting about it. This is a map of the United States. And what I wanted to show you is, this is Florida down here. And if you look, you can see kind of a little tiny fat belly hanging out there. That's where Cape Canaveral is. And that's where the astronauts took off. And way up here at the other end is Maine. And that's where we are. We're sort of right about in there where my fingernail is. So that's how far away Maine is from where the astronauts took off. Okay. As I said, in 1969 is when we had our, actually the only astronauts who have landed anywhere. The names of the guys were Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, who did the walking on the moon, and Michael Collins was also part of the crew, and he stayed on the ship and made sure that all of the machines were still working. They took off from Cape Canaveral, which is what I showed you, and that's where our young friend took off from too. There are many, many astronauts left, and Maine has two of them, a girl and a boy. There's a girl who lives almost near the bottom of Maine, and the boy comes from way up north. Chris Cassidy is the boy, and I think he's getting ready to take off on on a rocket ship. And Jessica Meyer, who is the girl, is in the space station that is, she left from Russia. The United States has not gotten along well with Russia, but we seem to be able to help each other with space travel. So there's a combination of Russian and American astronauts taking care of the space station that's up there right now. And that's where our very own Jessica is. So that's the end of the story. And I wanted to tell you about a couple of more books. This one is When the Moon is Full, and it talks about each month and why each one has a different name. And of course you can see that this also takes place in Maine with all our snow. Okay, another good one is The Moon Loon, which you guys may have heard already, but it's a fun book to read. And the last one is Thanking the Moon, which talks about the holiday that people who come from China celebrate, in which once a year they celebrate each of the parts of the moon. And all of these books, including the one that I read to you, are all right in our library, right upstairs on the second floor. So you know where to find it if you want to have your mom read it to you, or if you want to try to read it. So that's about it for me. So I will hope to see you next year when we have a real reading program. Take care, guys. Bye-bye now.